If you're a Jehovah's Witness, look, there's a lot of rage and invective out there directed at your religion, which really makes things difficult for people like you if you still hold some belief, sympathy, and belonging to this group. That's why you're actually going to want to subscribe to my channel. Nobody on YouTube, from what I can see anyway, is providing the other perspective in a way that invites questions, dialogue, and fair-mindedness. Not unless you're already like 95% the way out of your faith. Most of the time, I'm talking about more positive things like the law of attraction, which is compatible with every religion and ideology. Something worth looking into if you're interested. In today's video, however, I'm going to address the question of whether or not the Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. I'm going to explain how, given the degree of your unquestioning loyalty and certain other factors, why such a strong word is often appropriate. Having said that, I intend to give a little scale and dimension to the topic. This dirty word is frequently just thrown around for effect. Jehovah's Witnesses are people first. They're not all mindless cyborgs. Let's get right into it. Hey good people, I'm Derek London. Thanks for checking out my channel. Around here we talk about everything law of attraction. We discuss a lot about the psychological, scientific, and rational basis for subscribing to this philosophy of mine. And in fact, if your reality could stand some change for the better, you have only to start there, with your mind. Hit that subscribe button and settle in, because your life will never be the same. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. Okay, so let's go through this carefully and methodically. There are a few good reasons we non-witnesses and ex-witnesses label it a cult. There are also many reasons it's patently unfair. Let's go through the various definitions. Here's dictionary.com. The first one runs, a particular system of religious worship, especially with reference to its rites and ceremonies. The Jehovah's Witnesses are a religious group with a number of ceremonies or rites, which include baptism, door-to-door evangelization, commemorating the death of Christ, singing of hymns, and so on. Thus far, a pretty mundane criterion. Nothing really salacious there. All denominations adhere to this description. The second goes, an instance of great veneration of a person, ideal, or thing, especially as manifested by a body of admirers. This one is not so pedestrian. I mean, yeah, virtually all ideologies are again indicted on part of this definition. I believe that the vast sum of baptized members would claim they only worship Jehovah God. Second to that, Jesus is given veneration or reverence, although not worship. Most witnesses would flat out deny that they venerate the governing body. But when it comes to the level of devotion and loyalty they give to them, this is where it gets a little convoluted. I've disagreed with many people online that this entire group blindly follows their leaders unconditionally. It's true that a great many do, and it's a nauseating thing to see when this fidelity trumps their conscience, familial obligation, legal dues, moral responsibilities, or just basic common sense. But this is a deeply individual thing. The kind of allegiance or deference and sycophantical servitude that is expected from the top down definitely fits the dictionary classification. If you're a witness who's informed on what the society expects from you, I think we have to agree that it fits the description of a cult. In fairness, however, that is only a top-down view. The bottom-up perspective is quite different. There are many people I know, and many I've met online, even ones with position, who do not give this level of authority to them. In line with that, when the time comes that this commitment is tested, people's humanity and better angels repeatedly shine through. Many out there do have a little more of a democratic attitude toward this group. It's also the reason why many leave. So by the Watchtower's expectation of its members, Yes, it's a cult. That's my opinion. From the rank and file view, however, well, that's a totally personal and subjective question. If you're an active Jehovah's Witness watching this, you hardly fit this portrait. By watching this, you are testing whether you are in the faith, as Paul said, or worshiping God with your whole mind. A God who demanded you abandon the intellect he gave you in identifying truth would be a strange God indeed. I'd venture to say that probably most members, when put to the test, would not follow their leadership unconditionally. I doubt you would either. Here's another definition. A religion or sect considered to be false, unorthodox, or extremist, with members often living outside of conventional society under the direction of a charismatic leader. The Jehovah's Witnesses are a Protestant denomination that split from the Russellite umbrella of International Bible Students and have even bifurcated splinter groups since their official formation under Rutherford. On all three counts, they qualify as a sectarian group. Unorthodox? Well, their views are distinct from the mainstream tenets of Christianity. However, just like all the rest of them, they claim to follow the first century precedent. I suppose it depends upon which connotation of orthodoxy we use, doesn't it? If your definition is Catholicism, then yeah, they're unorthodox. If it means not Trinitarian, then yes, they're unorthodox. But by claiming that true Christianity conforms to the first century movement, such as they do, then any religion can call shotgun and pilfer the title. So that's a black hole I could devote an entire video to. Extremist? Well, according to Russia, sure. Pursuant to international federative judicial opinion, not even close. Ethical radicalism, however? Yeah, I'm going to go with yes on that, personally. Most religions in the Western world don't practice overt excommunication at the institutional level. And it creates a profound amount of damage in people's personal lives. It's true that they also live outside conventional society, but again, you got to have some scale here. They're not like Hutterites or Mennonites. They're not isolationist in that sense. Okay, now for the charismatic leader part of that definition. This is absolutely central to the common use of that word, cult. Until JW Broadcasting gained traction, the governing body has been largely enigmatic and obscure. Even in their modern form, they remain largely a cantankerous, bordering on senile, curmudgeonly homophobic, sexually repressed, plumpish, uncultured, and fantastically stale group of executives. Listen, when we refer to cults, we think of people like Jim Jones, Marshall Applewhite, David Koresh, Charles Manson, and Warren Jeffs. There is little cult of personality to speak of among the witnesses. The charismatic dear leader element is relatively non-existent. The other thing is, those names I just mentioned are murderous, polygamous, megalomaniacal psychopaths. Jehovah's Witnesses are routinely called a death cult for its position on bloodless treatments, which admittedly do result in death from time to time. But the blood issue among Jehovah's Witnesses is by far a legally and medically valid position grounded in decisional autonomy and science. Yes, at times they insist on conscience in those off cases when the science doesn't add up. And yes, the threat of excommunication creates huge pressures and psychological damage in those scenarios. These affairs intersect from time to time, and I've spoken out against that. But when people conflate this to Jim Jones, they're advertising their ignorance. There is simply no analogs between them. This has been before countless Supreme Courts in the Western world, and I'm sorry, I'm with them on this. The legal underpinning for bloodless medical self-determination is anchored to the very substratum which allows for female reproductive rights and a host of other laws that keep the state out of our personal beds and our hospital beds. We should thank the witnesses for that. I like one of Lexico's definitions on the word cult. Lexico is powered by Oxford, by the way. And here it is. A relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or as imposing excessive control over members. I agree with that. In this sense, the Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. Everything seems to come back to the excommunication issue. Don't misunderstand me. I've been severe in my comments regarding disfellowshipping. I think it's completely diabolical. And one can only hope there is a God or some force that'll hold the leadership accountable for such inhumane treatment. But as I've explained in other videos, this is not a legal issue, it's a moral one. It becomes a legal issue only when it directly imposes itself upon the constitutional rights and freedoms of others, or abets unscrupulous mishandling of evidence for rape and other crimes, a reality which has occurred and warrants restitution when it does. Disfellowshipping on its own, however, is not a judicial matter in our secular world. This too has been before the courts repeatedly. I agree with Chief Justice Beverly McLaughlin when she said that the courts may not have the legitimacy to assist in resolving a dispute about the greatest hockey player of all time, about a bridge player who is left out of his regular weekly game night, or about a cousin who thinks she should have been invited to a wedding. And I would feel that way if I were excommunicated or not. People only have power over you so long as you allow them such authority. So most of the definitions that I could see for the word cult fall under these descriptions. Are the Jehovah's Witnesses a cult? Well, in many ways, yes. In other ways, no, not really. In sum, cults can range from the kind of fandom or novelty that attends a film, a fad diet, snake oil, elk antler velvet, to the pornographic obsession accompanying demagogic charisma, electoral manipulation, propaganda, patriotic nationalism, a fratricidal doomsday religion, aiding and abetting a mob boss like John Gotti, and everything in between. Somewhere in this domain are the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's likely worse than what you'd see at a Star Wars convention or Comic-Con, yet well below Jim Jones and Hitler. You do the math. I think once they change their policies towards excommunication and reportage of legal evidence, they'll be every bit as legitimate as any other millenarian, eschatological, or messianic religion, which represents most faiths. Cult is a pretty strong word. It has its place if you're in good company. I mean, sure, I've called it a cult to my non-witness friends too. But good grief, don't be shocked when your believing family members shut down conversations with you for likening them to a psychotic death ring. There is some proportion here. Let me know what you think of that below in the comments. Hope it helped. I'm Derek London. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, did you like this video? You know what to do. And if something I mentioned today resonated with you, click one of them cards on this screen. I have lots of related content sure to interest you. Thanks as always for your views, and we'll see you next time.